leave it to others to decide whether it was a mere coincidence or intentional that the county attorney decided to bring was brought against somebody who obviously would never have the financial resources to mount a defense against unlimited power and resources of the government. And so I don't think that's a coincidence. And I guess the other thing that probably isn't a coincidence, but I'll let others decide, was the timing of the prosecution of Rodney Jones, because it was well within a few weeks of the decision by the county attorney in Maricopa County to not appeal the decision in the Xander Welton case, which is an important case we'll be happy to talk about with you. It was well within just a week or two of that decision that the county prosecutor in Yavapai decided to dust off her file and find a case that she could prosecute against somebody for the use of an extract or a product made with extract. And that was the case that was ultimately brought against Rodney Jones.
Yeah. Do you mind if I flesh that out a little bit, Snowden?
No, please do.
So what Rob is alluding to, and he's trying to be so delicate and be nice to the Yavapai County Attorney's Office, I don't feel like I have to be that nice because I don't directly represent Rodney. But I'll try to be nice. I'll try to be nice anyway.
Thank you.
But what Rob is alluding to is the year that Rodney got originally arrested is not the year he got charged. There's a year between the date he got arrested and the date Rodney actually got charged. So what was happening in that between time? What was happening in that between time is there was a case down in Maricopa County involving Xander Welton and his parents. Xander, I think at the time of his case pending, was 5 years old and had some sort of a congenital medical condition that triggered something between like 20 and 30 grand mal seizures a day. And Xander's parents had kind of exhausted the limits of Western medicine. Nothing really helped Xander. Then they discovered cannabis oil, which of course is an extract, and it's at the epicenter of Rodney's case, same as it was in Xander's case. And in that time frame, the Maricopa County Attorney, Bill Montgomery, was making public grumblings that he didn't think any of these extracted products were legal. And of course, Xander's parents wanted to do anything possible to make Xander's life better, but they didn't want to do it at the price of going to prison or having Xander go to prison. That would have been catastrophic for the family. So they filed a civil lawsuit here in Maricopa County seeking two things: declaratory relief and an injunction. And all they were asking was for the court to look at the Medical Marijuana Act and to declare thumbs up or thumbs down, are extracts part of the act? Yes or no? Binary question, very simple. And that's the same question raised in Rodney's case. Now, as it turns out, Superior Court Judge Catherine Cooper ruled on Xander's case in favor of extracts, and she wrote a really well-reasoned, well-worded opinion that walked through the analysis and came to the conclusion. And the Maricopa County Attorney's Office opted not to appeal it, which, granted, trial courts are not binding rulings statewide. They're only binding on the parties to the case. But the appearance was that the matter was settled, the question was done, everybody was happy with the outcome, except for the Yavapai County Attorney's Office, who, had they chosen to, could actually have taken up the appellate rights in Xander's case and fought it. Instead of doing that, they wanted to start over with a fresh, I want to use the word victim, but that's not fair, a fresh charge against a fresh party. So rather than beat up on the poor, sick 5-year-old, they selected Rodney. And all too coincidental, within mere days of the appeals time running on Xander Welton's case, the Yavapai County Attorney's Office formally charged Rodney. Now, what makes this kind of sickening is the fact that, again, Xander's case was available to the Yavapai County Attorney's Office. They could have appealed the same question in that case, where literally no one was threatened with jail. It was a civil lawsuit that asked the same question, There would have been no penalty or punishment to anybody, no matter which way that case ended. But instead, the Yavapai County Attorney's Office chose, as it turned out, to wrongly charge an innocent man. And they put him through hell, and Rodney sat in jail for 2.5 years when he never had to. None of this ever had to happen.
It really just makes my blood boil to hear that. And I didn't realize that detail, so thank you for clarifying it. I was aware of the Welton case as it happened. And, I just chalked it up to the fact that there was a much nicer prosecutorial body in Maricopa County when it came to the medical marijuana law here in Arizona. But
yeah, and you're right on that, Snowden. And to that point, I probably should say something nice about Bill Montgomery, too, who's the Maricopa County attorney. For people who know, Bill Montgomery is usually vociferously anti-marijuana. But in the Xander Welton case, he took a shot at the arguments. The court told him he was wrong. And to his credit, he accepted that and didn't try to press it forward. He certainly could have as well, but he didn't. So I wanted to say something nice because it's deserved.
Well, yeah, and Bill Montgomery has actually shown himself to be a lot more compassionate, a little more reasonable, I should say, when it comes to hearing these issues. And I think that he realizes, too, that the constituents in Maricopa County are going to be a lot more sympathetic to a case like that as well. And he wants to be sensitive to what they'd like, because that's an elected office, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And you're right. He is strongly opinionated, but he's also well-educated. And that's to his credit.
Right. And then when you look at Sheila Polk's office, and if you look at Sheila Polk, I should be fair to her office. She has been so outspoken on a political level, and I know you probably won't want to comment on this, but I'm a journalist and I can. She's accepted a lot of campaign dollars from people who are vehemently opposed to the medical marijuana law here. And also...
you're talking about the $500,000 she took from INSIS?
Oh,
or
yeah.
really, to be fair, an organization she is affiliated with. I should not say that Sheila took that money. She did not.
Well, it's well documented that INCES has been actively supporting the PACs that are against the cannabis laws just about everywhere, I think. And there's no secret in that. And also, there's no secret that Sheila Polk has also accepted monies from the alcohol industry, which at first was quite opposed to this as well.
Mm-hmm.
But her op-eds have been telling and unreasonable. And the other thing, too, Rodney Jones definitely was going to be a lot less sympathetic. And your word victim, I think he was victimized terribly in all of this, but he was definitely a less sympathetic character in her eyes than a 5-year-old with, seizures or...
The optics on it are totally distinct. I mean, who wants to be perceived as beating up on a terribly ill 5-year-old? I mean, nobody wins that PR battle, ever. And Xander, by the way, did pass away, ultimately.
Yeah, that was quite sad. I was grieving for his family when I learned about that. But
well, and to that point, his mother did appear as an amici in this case as well. So she also deserves an acknowledgement.
That's really great to hear. And there was also a case in Pinal County, if I'm not mistaken, that was very similar to both of these issues. And court actually found in his favor, but it wasn't necessarily about the extracts. Do you know what I'm talking about? And is this something you can elaborate on or not?
I have heard of probably 1 to 2 dozen other people being charged for possession of extracts. And by people, I mean AMA patients specifically. But from what we have been told, and Rob and I are kind of plugged into various networks in the marijuana community here, what we were told is that the prosecuting agencies and police agencies were kind of just sitting on those files, waiting to see what the Supreme Court would do. So as of Tuesday morning, there are probably 2 dozen people who woke up that morning not knowing they dodged a huge bullet. Yeah. Life for them could have been drastically different come Wednesday morning.
Yeah, that's for sure. Because had the decision gone the other way, and this is Rob speaking, I think the floodgates would have been opened, and everybody who needs and acquires products made from extracts, whether that be vape pens or any of the other numerous products, would have been targeted relentlessly by prosecutors in several of the counties.
Oh, yeah.
So, state prosecutors, I should say. So,
and God only knows what would have happened to the dispensaries.
Well, the dispensaries would have been the next target, I imagine. There again, I think that the idea on the part of the prosecutors was, we want to go after those who have the fewest resources. So let's go after somebody like Rodney. But had this decision gone the other way, I think it would have been not only the patients being targeted, but the dispensaries, dispensary agents, caregivers, and let's not forget the physicians. I think everybody would have been a target at that point. So in that respect, I think, it's sort of an epic win for the patients and the industry.
It's interesting that the AMMA was passed with a resounding approval, as I recall, in 2012. And it just seems so strange to me that for the last, it's been 7 years now, there are so many factions that have been fighting against it. And yet it's bringing in a lot of money to the state. So all seems very unjust.
And also with that, it also brings a reduction in opioid deaths. It brings a reduction in crime. It brings greater health to the almost 200,000 patients now who qualify medically for the program. And let me underscore that for a moment. And this sort of riffs a little bit off of the thing we were discussing about the Yavapai County Attorney's Office. There are still people out there who don't acknowledge or believe that cannabis is medicine. But if you look back at human history, and I literally mean all of human history, back to its first recordings, this species we call humans have been alongside this species called cannabis the entire time. And there's strong archaeological evidence to demonstrate that cannabis was probably the first, if not amongst the top 3 first crops human beings ever learned to cultivate. There's archaeological evidence of it in the Fertile Crescent over in the Middle East. You will see reference to this throughout Egyptian archaeology. You can look throughout all countries and time. Chinese medicine has cannabis in it. There are South and Central American Indian tribes that have some cannabis in it. There's areas in African history that have cannabis in it, and it has always historically been used as medicine. This notion of a recreational thing or a recreational bad-for-you drug is only the child of recent propaganda with no science behind it. So it's not like we were establishing for the first time that this stuff was medicine. Far from it. We were reestablishing that it has always been medicine.
Gary's pretty smart, Snowden. You couldn't tell.
Well, I already knew that.
My mom is proud.
Well, she should be. I mean, look what you're accomplishing these days. It's amazing. And I don't know your mother, but thank you to her for all the work that you're doing.
Well, all I hear are things like, "Oh my God, you're a pot lawyer!" So yeah, there's that.
That's true. Well, my mom's proud too. She's been sending little snippets of my interviews to all of her friends. But she lives in Colorado, so
Well, so it's a lot more socially acceptable. Yeah, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I actually did an episode on that very topic. In case anybody wants to check it out on the cannabisreporter.com, it's called New Wisdom About Ancient Cannabis Informs Modern Medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
It's absolutely true.
But, there's think of all of the public policy issues that are hot today, in which one side, because they're so obsessed with their position, is willing to completely ignore the evidence and the facts, and this is just one of several. We saw it in the briefing in this case, where assertions were being made totally out of the blue, almost like you were watching the movie Reefer Madness, with citations to documents, to research that doesn't exist, and to research that doesn't say what the briefing said it said, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
all of which had to be thoroughly